Nate Silver just released his 2024 presidential election model for the Trump versus Harris matchup. This is the first forecast from any major pundit or news network since Joe Biden dropped out of the race. Let's fill out an electoral college map now based on these numbers, as there has been a major shift in the race to 270 electoral votes between Vice President Harris and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz up against former President Trump and Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Now, Silver's national polling average at the time of recording this video has Kamala Harris leading Trump with 45.7% to 43.6% for a popular vote margin of D plus 2.1. Independent Robert F. Kennedy Jr. down here is polling at 5%. That is hovering around his lowest mark since the start of July. Now, as noted by Silver himself, his poll averages are a bit more complicated than others. They adjust for whether polls are conducted among registered or likely voters, the presence or absence of RFK Jr., and House effects. They weight more reliable polls more heavily, and they use national polls to make inferences about state polls and vice versa. He notes that it does require a few extra CPU cycles, but the reward is a more stable average that doesn't get psyched out by outliers. Saying all of that, those of you who follow election results closely may remember that this lead for Harris, 2.1%, is identical to Hillary Clinton's popular vote victory over Donald Trump in 2016. And of course, we all remember how that went down. Trump won the Electoral College, and quite decisively at that. Ultimately, presidential elections in the United States are decided via the Electoral College, and this current electoral era, marked by close election after close election, has made it so that just a few states, perhaps no more than 6 or 7, will decide which party secures the next 4 years in the White House. So let's take a look now at the Silver forecast's latest probabilities in each state. First, the safe states, where the chances of winning for either candidate are better than 90%. For Democrats, that includes Washington, Oregon, California, and Hawaii. Minnesota, Illinois, New York, Maine's 1st Congressional District, Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. Back on our map over here now, you can see that that translates over to 191 electoral votes for the Harris/Walz ticket here. That is their safe state total. Now for Trump and Vance, their safe states are Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah, North and South Dakota, Nebraska statewide and the 3rd and 1st districts, Kansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana, West Virginia, and South Carolina. Now, those states combine for 122 electoral votes, so that is the safe state total for former President Trump, as per Nate Silver's model. Of course, there are also plenty of states that have a strong degree of lean toward either candidate. These likely states have a better than 75% chance of voting for Harris or for Trump. For Harris, that includes Colorado, New Mexico, the Commonwealth of Virginia, and then New Hampshire, as well as the statewide contest in Maine, up here in the Northeast. While Trump is heavily favored in Alaska, Iowa, Ohio, Texas, and Florida, as well as Maine's 2nd Congressional District all the way up here. So now we have just 7 states here back on our electoral map remaining in gray without a rating. Plus, of course, the 2nd Congressional District in Nebraska. The Harris-Walz ticket leads Trump/Vance with 225 electoral votes to 219. 94 are left not yet rated in the all-important race to 270 electoral votes. Now, the 7 states that are left are those that entered this cycle as the core battlegrounds, and they remain that way here less than 3 months out from Election Day. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania here in the upper Rust Belt, then North Carolina and Georgia, as well as Arizona and Nevada across the Sun Belt region. Each of these states were decided by less than 3 points in 2020. They were the 7 closest states in that election, and with the exceptions of Nevada, which voted Democrat twice, and North Carolina, which voted Republican twice, the other 5 states flipped from Trump in 2016 to Biden in 2020. Perhaps most notably, this core Rust Belt trio has decided the last 2 presidential elections. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania have voted for the same candidate as one another since 1988, voting blue in all but one of those cycles, that being 2016, when they narrowly backed Trump against Clinton by less than a single percentage point each. Now, in that election, we saw Trump's emerging appeal to white, non-college educated working class voters here in these states and the broader Midwest region, including the 2-time Obama states of Ohio and Iowa, shift to the right and thereby secure his 2016 victory. Had Hillary Clinton just retained these 3 upper Rust Belt states in that election for the Democrats, Trump would never have been elected president. Then in 2020, riding off of his appeal as the most electable candidate in the Democratic primary, Joe Biden flipped enough white working-class voters who had supported Trump 4 years earlier to return these states into the Democratic column. He carried Pennsylvania by 1.2%, Michigan by 2.8%, and Wisconsin by 0.6%. Again, though, had Donald Trump held them in his camp, he would be serving a second term right now. So we know that Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are highly correlated and are likely to vote within just about a point or 2 of one another. We also know that Democrats have put in massive overperformances in this region since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, as these states are all less religious and therefore more pro-choice than the Sun Belt states in comparison. Democrats swept the governor races in all 3 upper Rust Belt states here in 2022 and outperformed the polls in key Senate and House races in that election as well. This effect was less pronounced across the Sun Belt, where Trump has also consistently performed better in 2024 in the polls against both Biden and Harris than in the Rust Belt. On that note, the 4 Sun Belt states don't necessarily carry the same weight or history as the Rust Belt trio, though they have emerged as key targets for both the DNC and RNC over the past 5 to 10 years. Georgia and Arizona have trended hard to the left in that time span, going from reliable red states to now definitively purple. Both states' leftward trends can be attributed to the rapid growth and diversification of their 2 major metro regions, Atlanta in Georgia and Phoenix in Arizona. These are 2 of the fastest growing cities in the United States, attracting a large number of college grads looking for work from left-leaning areas of the country. This, combined with an increase in turnout among Black and Hispanic voters, helped push Biden over the edge in 2020 in both states. He secured Arizona by 0.3%, and then Georgia by 0.2%, becoming the first Democrat to carry either state since 1996. As for the state of Nevada now, 6 electoral votes, it's the smallest battleground in terms of population and therefore the least electorally significant as well. Unlike Arizona and Georgia, though, Nevada has trended, relatively speaking, to the right in recent years, as Republicans have made gains among Hispanic voters, a key racial demographic here, and the fact that Nevada ranks 44th out of the 50 U.S. states in terms of the proportion of residents with a college degree. That is the lowest of any state that Biden won in 2020, and it's made all the more significant because voters without a college degree do tend to lean right, while those with a degree lean left, and that divergence has grown at an astronomical rate in the Trump era. Biden carried Nevada by 2.4% in 2020, an identical margin to Hillary Clinton in 2016, even though the nation shifted left between those elections, which does mean that Nevada, at the state level, actually trended to the right. Republicans managed to capitalize on that shift in the 2022 midterms, flipping the governor's office. They also came within a point of unseating a reasonably popular Democratic incumbent senator, Catherine Cortez Masto, as well. Not to mention they received more votes across Nevada's 4 U.S. House races for the first time in decades. So that is the lay of the land in terms of trends and voting patterns in these individual states. Like I had touched on earlier, Trump consistently polled better against Biden in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia than he ever did in Pennsylvania, Michigan, or Wisconsin. And this is carried over to polls with Harris now as well. As per Nate Silver's latest election polling averages, Trump leads Harris by an average of 0.6% in Nevada, with 42.6% to 42%. Then in Georgia, the former president is up by 1.2%, 46% to 44.8%. And then over in Arizona, Trump's lead is at 1.4%, 45.5% to 44.1%. And then finally, he leads Harris in North Carolina as well, the Tar Heel state, by his largest margin of the four, 2.1%, 45.8% to 43.7%. So Trump does lead in each of these Sunbelt battlegrounds by an average of 1.3%. And comparing this now to the Rust Belt trio, Harris leads Trump in Wisconsin by 1.3%, 45.5% to 44.2%. And then in Michigan, her largest advantage out of the key states, it's Harris plus 2.4 with 44.7% to 42.3%. And then finally in Pennsylvania, the keystone state in name and practice, Harris leads by just under a point, 0.9% with 45.5% to 44.6%. So definitely a difference there in the polls between the two regions, although every state remains within or close to the margin of error. And considering that the fundamentals are all so similar between these 7 states as well, it should come as no surprise that the Silver forecast model probabilities are extremely close as well. Donald Trump is currently favored in Arizona with a 57.9% chance of winning, and in Georgia at 57% odds on the dot. Now those odds do translate over to tilt Republican ratings here on our map, so 11 more electoral votes out of Arizona and 16 out of Georgia do raise the former president up to 246 now. Trump is also favored in North Carolina with a 63.1% chance of winning. That is a lean Republican margin here on our map. 16 more electoral votes raise Trump up to 262. Yet, meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris is currently favored to sweep the Rust Belt trio per Silver. She is at 55.1% in Wisconsin, a tenth of a percentage point above the threshold for this to be labeled as a toss-up. She's at 62.8% in Michigan, her best odds in any of the key battlegrounds, which should come as no surprise as it is the most fundamentally blue, and she is polling the best here. And then finally, in Pennsylvania, Harris has a 56.1% chance of winning. So back on our electoral map, 19 electoral votes in Pennsylvania tilt blue, 15 electoral votes in Michigan as well, and then 10 in Wisconsin. They raise Harris up to the very brink of 270 at 269. She is currently forecasted, though, to win the 2024 presidential race. Is going back to the forecast, we see Silver's data, giving her a 65.2% chance of winning in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. That is a lean Democrat rating on our map, and that one electoral vote does lift the vice president up to exactly 270, the winning number. And the final state remaining on our map is Nevada, which is as pure of a toss-up as it can get here, as you see Harris has a 50.4% chance of winning, which rounded down is effectively 50%, so a coin flip here. So, as per the Silver forecast, the Silver state goes down as a pure toss-up on our map. Alrighty, that does it for this translation of the Nate Silver Silver Bulletin 2024 presidential forecast over to an electoral college map. Harris is favored to defeat Trump with 270 electoral votes to 262 in what would be one of the closest electoral college finishes in election history. As always, feel free to let me know in the comments below what you think of this map and these electoral race ratings. Shout out to my channel members on screen here. Thank you so much for your support. If you would like to become a member, go ahead and click the join button below this video to receive exclusive perks. Make sure to subscribe to my channel down below as well, and please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it. You can check out more content from my channel here, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. EP out.